The third chapter features tools, resources, and guidance for staffing and supporting an English learner program. Next slide, please. Chapter 3 provides information about staffing English learner programs with an adequate number of qualified educators who will be able to provide academic and language support to English learners. In recent years, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of English Language Acquisition, OELA, developed and published a number of resources on this topic. OELA, in collaboration with the Institute of Education Sciences, IES, National Research and Development Center to Improve Education for Secondary English Learners, hosted a webinar on this topic of the development of teacher expertise to serve students classified as English learners. During this webinar, panelists presented a model for the development of teacher expertise to serve English learners and shared multimodal resources to plan and implement high-quality professional learning in pre-service and in-service programs. In addition to the many products published by OELA on our Ensela website are our information elevated data visualizations called Elevated. These video vignettes offer a snapshot of data on English learners. This data viz focuses on English learners' access to educators and other support staff. The data is based on the analyses of two large federal data sets, the Civil Rights Data Collection, CRDC, and the Common Core of Data, CCD. The Teacher Projections for English Learners fact sheet focuses on the 5-year projections for teachers of English learners reported by states. Please note that states may have different definitions of English learner instructors and different ways of calculating the 5-year projections. Also featured is part 2 of the English Learner Teacher Preparation podcast. OELA and Dr. Anjali Pandey, the principal investigator of the National Professional Development Grant, Training and Retraining Grades K-12 Eastern Shore Teachers, also known as Project Target, discuss the impetus for the Target program, the steps taken for its implementation, and its outcomes as well as challenges, successes, lessons learned, and next steps. For those interested in developing their own teacher preparation program, please check out this great podcast for some helpful insights. Next slide, please. Another resource on staffing English learner programs is a report from the Institute of Education Sciences, IES, and the National Center for Education Evaluation and Regional Assistance and Regional Educational Laboratory Southwest. The report examined the relationship between teacher certification, both type and route, and growth in academic achievement and English proficiency among English learners in grades 4 and 5 in the Houston Independent School District. The National Research and Development Center to Improve Education for Secondary English Learners seeks to significantly advance the capacity of educators, policymakers, and researchers to serve students who are English learners by bridging research and practice bidirectionally. Funded by a grant from IES, the center comprises a world-class research team from WestEd, the University of Oregon, Oregon State University, and the National Center for Research on Evaluation, Standards and Student Testing at the University of California, Los Angeles. The center furthermore strives to engage in national leadership, build capacity, and promote compelling and actionable information that improves opportunities for secondary English learners. The non-regulatory Title III guidance was released by the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Elementary and Secondary Education in 2016 and revised in 2019. It provides states and local educational agencies with information to assist them in meeting their obligations under Title III of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, as amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015, to provide supplemental services to English learners, immigrant children and youth, and their families, including staffing and supporting English learner educators. This guidance also provides the public with information about their rights under this law and other relevant laws and regulations. You can access all of the resources listed on this slide, the previous slide, and more on the Ensela website and through the links on the slide. Next slide, please. To recap, Chapter 3 of the English Learner Toolkit provides users with guidance for local educational agencies to hire an adequate number of teachers who are qualified to provide English learner services and core content teachers who are qualified in their field, as well as trained to support English learner students. You can find additional guidance and information on supporting English learner programs in the English Learner Toolkit. We're now going to turn to our panel to discuss this topic further. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Francisco Lopez, and I am with the Office of English Language Acquisition, and I am joined here by two rock stars. We have Dr. Sandra Moran from Illinois and Dr. Mary Martinez-Wnezl out of Oregon. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And the first, we'll just dive right in. The first question is for Dr. Mary Martinez-Wnezl, and it is the following. What procedures do you have in place at the state level to ensure that districts have qualified teachers and administrators in their EL programs?
Thank you, Francisco. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm with the Oregon Department of Education, and at the state level, our state policy requires our ELD programs to be staffed by qualified personnel. That's laid out in our Oregon administrative rules. And qualified personnel is defined as a licensed educator with who has training and instructional methodologies proven effective with multilingual students. It's our Oregon Teacher Standards and Practices Commission that sets the requirements for teacher licensure and ESOL requirements. For the most part, if you teach ELD, you're required to have the ESOL endorsement, which can be completed at the undergraduate or graduate level. It is about 6 courses, an exam, and there's a clinical requirement. We do have many small rural districts in Oregon as well, where the number of English learners might be in the single digits, and they may not have enough funding or need to support a full-time ESOL certified educator. In those conditions, a licensed teacher who's had training, evidence-based training, and not providing more than 10 hours a week of direct instruction, ELD, could be approved too. So that's kind of what we have in state policy. We also have, competency requirements for all educators baked into our teacher licensure requirements in our teacher education programs. So no one in Oregon can obtain a teaching license without demonstrating some level of competence in supporting multilingual learners. We also, I think, have a pretty generous funding model. So in Oregon, most of the funding that supports English learners is not from Title III, it's from our state general fund, and we allocate an extra 0.5 ADM weight for each student who is served in an English learner program. So that breaks down to just shy of $5,000 per English learner. And that provides our districts with the resources they need, not only for staffing, but for training. In addition, I'd say Oregon's made some strong investments in the last few years in educator training overall. We have our Educator Advancement Council, which oversees a network of 10 regional educator networks and is providing grant funding for 27 Grow Your Own programs across the state and scholarships for teachers and administrators of color. So all of that's in motion. And then one thing we always like to elevate is the strength of our partnership with Mexico. We're really proud to have a strong binational partnership with the Mexican government. This summer, we're welcoming 32 teachers from states all across Mexico to work in our migrant summer programs. And that's an area where we see a lot of potential for expanding the collaboration to have more support during the regular school year for our English learners and really for all of our students in dual language programs. So that's those are just a few of the things that we do at the state level to support ensuring that districts have qualified teachers in their English learner programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's exciting. The next question is for Dr. Sandra Moran, and it's the following. So what is your process for staffing EL programs at your district?
Yes, thank you, Francisco. Our staffing for EL programs at the district level involves pretty much a lot of different steps. First of all, it's important that we as leaders conduct a needs assessment for EL programs. This involves pretty much conducting, trying to look at all your data, EL student enrollment data, the language proficiency levels of your student population, and the number of ELs requiring services, because if all of a sudden from one year to the next year, you receive 100 or 200 extra students, that obviously is going to affect your staffing for the following year. You need to also look and see what kind of required services are needed in your institution. Do you just need ESL teachers? Do you require more bilingual dual language teachers or instructional assistants, parapros? Especially if you're having more of those low incidence language groups, you probably want to be looking at instructional aid support to assist you with the translation components of what the students might be exposed to in the classrooms, especially at the higher education levels, middle school and high school. We need somebody to be able to be there who can translate for the students. So when hiring, that's something that you really need to look into as well. As far as jobs and postings, I'm glad that we work very closely with the social education agencies, Illinois State Board of Education. They do have a teacher exchange program as well, and our districts do partner off with the Embassy of Spain, and they're looking at Mexico as well. Many of my other colleagues are recruiting teachers from Puerto Rico or other areas. So I think we're trying to get very creative and thinking outside the box as far as where we can recruit. But I think our previous we have previously heard that also growing your own is key, instrumental for this. At the high school level, we now have introduction to education. So, targeting those high school students who are thinking about what kind of career they're going to pursue, this is a perfect time at the high school setting. You ensure that you offer a course in introduction to education, and then entice the students and encourage them to become bilingual and our future educators. That's going to be key. We are very happy that at Illinois now they do have some funding available for us. Their title funds now, it's called Elevating Educators. So districts were able to apply for this funding. So there are many districts throughout Illinois who have been granted funding to support unqualified educators that might be maybe just a content area teacher, who can now receive their endorsement in ESL and bilingual education. And we are helping fund that. And of course, taking in a little bit of funds as well, supplemental funds from our Title III, or maybe other funds that might be available. But more than anything, we're so happy to be partnering with the State Board of Education, and they assist us with funding that makes this possible for us. As you know, we have a shortage of educators. Dual language and bilingual and multilingual teachers are very hard to find. We're always competing against each other, trying to recruit the most qualified, but we have to do everything we can to try to grow our own and, again, support the tuitions of those educators that are pursuing careers in multilingual education.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, fly back to Oregon. So Dr. Martinez-Wnezl, back over here. What is your process for staffing EL programs at your district here in Illinois? I'm sorry, did I repeat that question? It's a little frozen.
Oh, I think, that question's for Dr. Sandra Moran.
So sorry, the next one, I'm sorry. It's a little frozen. How do you differentiate professional development for new and veteran teachers? And this goes for either of you if you want input. I think this is a really hot topic that we see on our end.
Do you want to go first, or anyone?
Well, yes. No, go ahead. I was going to speak more to the PD that we provide for district leaders, but if you want to
Okay,
answer the question, I'll add on
yes,
anything that's
I'll
relevant.
be happy
Mhm.
to. Well, definitely, differentiating for PD for new and veteran teachers is obviously something that you have to be very strategic about. Differentiation, in my opinion, involves recognizing teachers' unique needs, experiences, and their backgrounds and goals that they may have. For new teachers, we basically always start with an orientation and an induction for all new incoming staff. It is critical that we review our school policies so they become familiar, and more importantly, we give them a thorough. I make sure that our multilingual teachers are familiarized with the state and federal policies uh, as it pertains to multilingual students. And as far as the rights of parents and the rights of families, many of our educators sometimes we still have families that do refuse EL services for their children. They just either want them to just get partial support when we know that they really need to be in a full-time bilingual education program, but many of our families sometimes say throughout the state have said, we refuse services, and it is important for them to familiarize our families and let them know that it is a right, and the rationale behind why we offer such programs. So, for our new staff, definitely understanding the state and federal, and more so, I think also providing myth and fallacies information, because there's a lot of myths about multilingual education, bilingual education, dual language education among staff members that might not have the knowledge. So again, providing them an orientation, giving them all the tools and information so they can be able to educate educators who have questions or who have misconceptions about what we're doing as educators. I think it's also very key now, and something that we've been doing now is assigning a mentor to our new teachers. New teachers need mentors. They need support for instructional practices. It's a lonely world sometimes, and when you're a new teacher, you're afraid to seek support. So mentorship and is so key. I know that as many districts do have dual language coaches or bilingual coaches, and some of them just have a general coach. In my district, we unfortunately did not have a bilingual coach, but I did seek out consultants. So using title funds, I seek out a consultant as a part-time person to come in and assist me with the coaching of our staff. Another thing that I feel that is important is that we should provide and assist our teachers in developing a toolkit of effective instructional strategies that are appropriate for our either multilingual, low incidence language or our majority language, which is Spanish speaking in our case. So that's important that we give them all the tools that are going to help them be successful and that they develop this toolkit. And mentorship, I think it's very important also that we provide mentorship opportunities for them to go ahead and go also into classrooms where they can see other experienced teachers in practice and using a lot of these instruction strategies. For our veteran teachers, I'm just going to be a little bit brief for them. Just continue to provide more personalized learning for them. A lot of us, educator as well, a lot of technology integration, more tools, and I didn't grow up with the technology world, so it's important that we beef up our technology tools and educate our seasoned veterans staff with more technology integration, especially AI as it's coming now. We want to make sure that our teachers are up to date with all the advancements that our tech people or better yet our children that are coming in with a lot more technology skills than a lot of our veteran teachers sometimes have. Subject area advancements for DD, I know that also for my teachers, I ensure that our seasoned teachers have opportunities to grow professionally as leaders. So, I want to give them the opportunity to provide and to enhance their leadership roles. So give them, these will maybe hire them to be the teachers who are going to coach the new teachers. So give them a lot of trainings and opportunities for them to be coaches and to be the future mentors, and again, maybe for future principals. So providing seasoned teachers and veteran teachers with a lot of opportunities to take part in leadership roles. And last thing that I would say is our veteran teachers continue to give them more that social emotional learning PD that's needed for them, and culture responsive teaching. That is so key for all our veteran teachers, and not just our veteran teachers, everyone as whole, but with everything that's going on in this country and everything we're seeing in the classrooms, SEL PD is just crucial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is for Dr. Mary Martinez-Wnezl, and this one is specific about district leaders. How do you provide PD for district leaders who supervise programs?
Thank you. Well, at the state level, one of the primary ways in which we interact with our district leaders is through our Title III program. We hold office hours throughout the school year. It was every week, but we shifted it in response to feedback to every other week. And office hours really depend on the week. Some weeks it is an open-ended discussion where people are coming to the space and really bringing forward their questions, more of a kind of learning community. But we also have and advertise presentations on specific topics that are a high priority or in response to needs that we're seeing. So what does that look like? In the past year, we had trainings on our English language proficiency assessments. We're an ELPA state. We have a new alt-ELPA for students with severe cognitive disabilities. That just rolled out in the past school year. There was a lot of training around that. Private schools was an office hours topic. Supporting our students designated as English learners who are also talented and gifted. We do have concerns about under-identification for our gifted ELs. We work with our district leaders to ensure that they have the information and training they need for our Title III data collection. And earlier this year, we also launched some revisions to our home language survey. So some of the training that we provided was around that to ensure that everyone knew how to use the new tool. Really a lot of office hours is working in close collaboration with our assessment team because ELPA lives in a different office, requires a high level of coordination at the state level on all of our policies and our training. We have a pretty unique policy in Oregon that can positively benefit multilingual learners related to our diploma requirements. That just became law fairly recently. We no longer require 4 credits of English for the high school diploma. We've shifted to a 4-credit language arts requirement. A lot of our districts had questions about that. We do training on that topic to ensure they know exactly what can count towards the language arts requirement. There is flexibility to count language arts courses that were completed in any language, whether that was a Spanish literature course taken here in Oregon or a Russian language arts course taken before they came to Oregon. As long as the content standards have been met, it's eligible for credit that can count towards a diploma requirement. We've also made it clear that in advanced ELD class, if it covers the grade 9 language arts standards, might be eligible to fulfill one of those English credit requirements. So a lot of the, in short, a lot of the training we do at the state levels for district leaders around assessment, funding issues, Title III policy issues. We just don't have the capacity to be out in all 197 districts in Oregon doing on-the-ground PD. So we try to, when we do those things, create materials that will have a life beyond the event. Some of the key areas of need that we're really focused on developing more PD resources in are supporting our smaller and rural districts where they may have very few multilingual learners, but the need may be even greater. You can imagine a district that has never had any English learners, and then we have districts that this year have 2, recent arrivals from Mexico. How do we ensure those students are receiving a high quality ELD program and all of their civil rights are being met? We've seen a significant increase in refugees, like many states. Many of those students, as Dr. Moran mentioned, come with significant need for social emotional learning. Oregon is a very agricultural state. We have a large migratory student population. Many of those students are also English learners and have unique needs related to mid-year moves and interruptions in their schooling. And one area we've been developing more resources for districts is around supporting our Indigenous Latinx students who speak Mesoamerican languages like Mam, Kankobal, Quiche. We have communities all over Oregon serving Indigenous speakers and very few resources for translation in these languages, which we've been, and it's requires a lot of expertise that honestly we often don't have in a Department of Ed and in our districts. So we've partnered with a linguist, a professor of linguistics from the University of Oregon, to develop training materials and resources in that area. One thing we're proud of is how we've leveraged our ESSER 3 set-aside funds to support bilingual education. So we have some strategic investments that are underway right now for bilingual educators that really are going in two directions. We've issued $3.75 million in grants to our districts to support bilingual educators, and we've defined that very broadly. A bilingual educator could be an instructional assistant, a district administrator, speech language pathologist. We need multilingual educators in all of those roles, and we need to ensure they're compensated for their skills. So at the state level, we do a bilingual pay differential. We don't currently have a state policy for compensating bilingual educators, but that is of interest to our legislature, and there are some proposals underway to have a more consistent compensation for bilingual educators. Finally, I would say one thing that is a high priority in Oregon is early literacy. We have a new governor, Governor Tina Kotak. That is her primary focus, and we've launched a new literacy framework that really centers multilingual learners throughout the framework. It's not a separate chapter or a call-out box. Multilingual learners are throughout the framework, and we have a strong asset-based lens in how we look at multilingual learners, not as like empty vessels who are needing to learn English, but as students who are coming into our schools with incredible gifts that need to be recognized, leveraged, and preserved. You know, the reason why we're struggling so much to have bilingual educators is because of the failure to foster bilingualism in our schools over so many generations. Many of our predecessors did not have the opportunity to go to bilingual programs. I can just think of my mother, who's Mexican American. Back in the 50s in LA, students were not allowed to speak Spanish at school. Parents were told not to speak Spanish to their children, and there's a lot of language loss that occurred because of that. I kind of think of like a clear cut. You know, in Oregon, we've had a lot of loss of our forests and old growth because they cleared everything out, and now we need to regrow all of that language diversity. It's going to take time, probably multiple generations. But some good work is underway, and we're really grateful for the partnership from our universities. We have several NPD grantees, and yes, I think we're out of time, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah, that was wonderful. We really appreciate your expertise here again. And similarly to the other sessions, we've got lots of good chatter in the chat with resources being shared and information for all of us. So thank you again, Francisco, and to the panelists for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. We will be taking a short little break. So we'll be showing some videos in the meantime. And then when we come back together as a whole group, we have our next session, and that will start at 3 o'clock. And the content of that session will be addressing English learners with disabilities. So we look forward to seeing you all shortly, and enjoy the videos.